Let's do the first one.
The questions, whatever you want. So,
So with Keith
yes.
Bradbury.
Keith Bradbury is my name, yes.
Okay. How or why did you Doctor Who store, especially out here in like Canby, right?
Yeah, we're in Canby here.
I mean, I'm driving by, I didn't even know you're there, and I see this huge TARDIS. I'm like, that can't be a TARDIS, and sure enough, it is. So, can you tell me anything on what? The only word I said, what possessed you to do this?
Well, we got to go back a few years. When in the late '70s and into the early '80s, Doctor Who was on the PBS stations in America, and I was growing up in that time. I saw Star Wars, the first one, when it was in the theaters, now named A New Hope, but at the time it was just Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I was a big sci-fi fan. I'd been watching Star Trek, the original series,
Oh,
on
yeah.
reruns as a kid. Then Star Trek came along. I mean, Star Wars came along and really, captured my imagination. All my toys were Star Wars action figures and spaceships and stuff like that. Then Battlestar Galactica came on the television, and I loved the original Battlestar Galactica. It was all, it was kind of the fun of Star Wars, but it was on your TV every week, and you never got to, we didn't have VHS tapes of Star Wars in those days. You saw it in the theater, or you didn't see it because George Lucas wouldn't let it be on TV for the longest time, other than the Star Wars Christmas Spectacular, which I did see and I regret to this day. And but Doctor Who, the funny thing is, I had PBS where I lived. I lived in Central Illinois at the time, and I had a PBS station, and they started advertising they were going to start showing Doctor Who. First time they were going to show it, they were going to start with Tom Baker, the first episode of Robot, and I saw the very first episode of Robot, the very first episode they showed, and because I loved sci-fi, I was like, this is, I was excited about a new sci-fi television show.
Yeah.
And started with Robot. And honestly, at the time, the stories were so good, you didn't think about the, cheesy special effects. You didn't think about that, but you really enjoyed it. And the more you watched, the more you started to learn there was more to this show than what you knew. In other words, there were 3 doctors who preceded it. Of course, I wasn't aware of regeneration at all. I may have seen the short regeneration scene of Pertwee into Tom Baker at the beginning of Robot. I don't recall it. I just remember watching Tom Baker, and I was watching faithfully. And then when Sarah left, that was the biggest shock to me, because I was so into Sarah Jane Smith, and then she left the program and Leela came on, and I was like, does Leela become Sarah Jane Smith? What's going to happen? Where's Sarah Jane Smith? I couldn't take it when she wasn't there anymore. And then I kept watching, and then they, but like I said, as time went on and I continued to watch, you start getting more.